Okay, finally, good morning, everyone. It's really good to see some people in person joining a conference again, even though we have more people online. So welcome to everyone who's joining on Zoom. And this is why we need to have all the tech support here, because we've got some people joining us there as well. I'm Henk. I'm the co-founder of Illuminate, the company that joined Insights 4 years ago, and I'll be your host for today. So we've got two great presentations today. I'll introduce them now, just some formalities. There's a smoking section outside. There's also toilets. If you just take a left outside and then right on the left, you can also just ask someone, I'm sure. We will do the presentations with some Q&A afterwards. If I can ask, you've got a little mic on your table. Just make sure to press the button if you ask the question, because then our guests who are joining online can also hear the question and we don't need to repeat it. So on to the first presentation, we've got Joeri, who's one of the co-founders of Insights. He's also our future consumer expert. And he's part of the group that founded Insights 25 years ago, which is almost the same age as the oldest of this Gen Z, Gen Z, Zoomer cohort that we're talking about. It's also his birthday yesterday. So if you want to say happy birthday, let's be nice to Joeri, and I'll just hand him a little something for those on Zoom. I'm giving him a bottle of gin. So there we go. We'll make sure he doesn't start drinking that before the presentation. And then the second presentation, which is going to follow after the Q&A, is by Anneri. Anneri is a business director who I think a lot of you know from the South African office. She's the first team member to join after the founders of Illuminate all those years ago. So she has seen firsthand the evolution of digital in this country, and not surprisingly, she's speaking about digital inclusivity. So we're looking forward to that as well. So please enjoy the presentations with us. I'll hand over to Joeri to get us started, introducing the topic of Gen Z, Gen Z, Zoomers, whatever we call them tomorrow. Over to you, Joeri.
Zoomers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone here physically alive in the room, and all of those who are online as well. There's some of you out there as well. So I'm happy to meet some people in real life again. As a presenter, it's much nicer than being beyond my computer screen at home, looking at my own garden all the time. It's nice, but it gets boring after 2 years of the pandemic. So thanks for being here. As mentioned, the title of the presentation is Are You Okay, Zoomers? I have two Gen Z daughters myself, aged 14 and 18, and they often reply to me, okay, boomer, whenever I think I'm saying something intelligent. So this is my revenge. I called my presentation, okay, Zoomers, but it's not really a revenge. If you look at the title, it's really a question, are you okay? Because to be honest, lately I've been wondering a bit, are they still feeling okay? We had a pandemic globally. We practically changed our kids to their bedrooms. They couldn't go out, have fun. They had some remote schooling. They missed out on important milestones in life, like proms, graduation, getting a driver's license, internships, starting a first job, all postponed or virtually taking place, which is not the same. Sorry for those on Zoom. It's not the same as really meeting people and looking them into their eyes. So I was a bit worried. And when you're a researcher, when you're worried about your children, what do? Yeah, normally you should say you talk to them, but yeah. What I did was a global piece of research as a researcher with Zoomers around the world, also in Belgium, but also in South Africa. So today I will be sharing the South African results, which is, we did it not only with Generation Z or the Zoomers, but also with older generations, my Generation X, also some of your generation as well, Generation Y or millennials, and then the real old guys, the baby boomers, to compare the different generations in South Africa and see where the differences really sit. And we did it around the globe, as I mentioned. The field was in between April and summer, actually July, like in Asian countries, but April and May in South Africa. And so the why, I think it's obvious. It's the upcoming generation. It's quite an important generation. They will have an impact on consumption and on our brands in the next few months. But as mentioned, my first worry was really, are they okay or are they feeling broken? And to be honest, in the past months and years, we saw some manifestations of Gen Zers that feel a bit broken. And you probably remember Simone Biles' Summer Olympic Games in Tokyo, also postponed for 1 year because of the pandemic. And Simone decided to withdraw from the team's final, stating that she wanted to protect her mental health, which to me as a Gen Xer, when I was watching this, this was a surprise. I was a bit astonished because, okay, if you're an athlete and you have physical injuries, then there's a reason not to participate in a competition. But mental injuries or saying I want to protect, the pressure is too high. For a professional athlete, to me as a Gen Xer, it was wow, never seen something like that before. And Simone Biles is not the only one. If you're into tennis, Naomi Osaka, Japanese tennis player, at the same stuff happening at a certain point, Roland Garros, French Open. And of course, these are celebrities, but the same is happening to our generation around the world. So when we looked into the stress levels of this generation, we saw that in South Africa, 45% of 18 to 25 years, we started at 18 for research ethical reasons, stated that they feel stressed, too highly stressed on a scale, which means half of the generation says, I'm really stressed, too highly stressed. And this is higher than older generations. We do see that in South Africa, also millennials feel highly stressed, whereas the difference between Gen Z, Gen Z and millennials is a bit higher in other regions around the world. In South Africa, both young, let's call them both young generations, millennials and Z are feeling stressed to highly stressed. So you could say the whole generation from 13 to 40 years old in South Africa is feeling high levels of stress. But specifically, it's more manifesting with the youngest one, with Generation Z. And it's also the reason why we see that the SITEisfaction, the South African Anxiety and Depression Group, is working together with role models, Miss South Africa, to connect with young people who are struggling with their mental health. So Miss Musida actually and Sadak created this Mindful Mondays on Instagram Live broadcasts, narrowcasts, in which she connects with young people, listens to them and gives some advice on the mental health struggles they're going through. And when we looked into the sub-sample of those indicating I feel stressed to highly stressed, so only the ones, top 2 boxes as we call it as researchers. And we asked them, what are the main reasons you feel stressed? We also see some differences between generations. And you see both for millennials and Gen Z, my studies or my job, some of them are still studying, others are already working, are the #1 stressor. And that's also the case for Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka, you could say. It's really their job giving a lot of pressure, a lot of internal expectations to perform, but also a bit external expectations. Like here in South Africa, we have black tax. So of course, also we want to achieve for ourselves, but also we want to pay back our parents as well. Another conclusion is there is an influence of the pandemic. So we did a study, I'm not sure if you can say post-pandemic, I do hope so. At least it was inter-pandemic. So we already had almost 2 years of the pandemic. And you see that many refer to the fact that their jobs or their prospects, at least their education, has been postponed or disrupted because of what was happening. Almost 4 out of 10 Gen Zers is referring to that here in South Africa. And then the third, actually, the #2 in the top 3 sources of stress. It says top 4, but if you can count as good as I can, it's only the top 3 that is shown here on the slides, just to see if you're still awake as researchers. It is comparing myself to others. And there again, you see the significant difference between Gen Z really and the millennials, because often we think we've been saying that for each generation, like these are the digital natives. The millennials were the digital natives, but they were not really digital natives. I mean, their first phone, and I talked to Anneri about this, was a Nokia. And a Nokia, yeah, you could call with a Nokia, and it was a very good phone. You could also use it as a weapon if you want. If you throw it at someone, you could throw it on the ground and it would still work. But it was not a smartphone. You were not confronted with socials, with social media, with your friends 24/7. Not at that young age, but this is the case for people today. Also in South Africa for Generation Z, they do have access to mobile internet, they do have their phone, and they do have all the socials that keeps comparing them to what others are doing, status anxiety, or yeah, other ways of comparing yourself, for instance, when it comes to beauty standards. Now, to illustrate how this comparing yourself can become toxic, I used a small fragment, quite strong fragment. So this is a warning from Euphoria, which is an HBO show. How many of you here in the room have seen Euphoria? Yeah, I'm a researcher, so I think it's 36.5%. And online, I don't know if anyone is commenting on watching Euphoria, but I can highly recommend to watch it. Not if you're a dad of Gen Z daughters like myself, because yeah, you will be even more worried about your children, because it's all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But it's also about the lifestyle and the things this generation is confronted with. Let's have a look at the fragment.
Kat hated herself. But the problem with hating yourself is you can't really talk about it. Because at some point recently, the whole world joined a self-help cult and won't shut the fuck up about it.
It's not gonna solve all your life problems, but it is gonna solve
Kat,
battle.
you're one of the bravest, most beautiful human beings I have ever seen.
That's not true.
Yes, it is. I wish I had your confidence.
But I don't, like, feel healthy.
Yes, you are.
No, like, seriously, I'm not.
Kat, you just have to love yourself.
But that's what I'm trying to tell you. I fucking hate myself.
Every day you get out of bed, it's an act of courage.
That's easy for you to say. You don't have, like, fucking mental problems.
Yes, I do. Why do you think I look like this?
Are you kidding? I wish my mental problems made me look like you.
Trust me, you don't.
Trust me, I do. You're like the most beautiful person I've ever fucking seen.
Maybe by a white, cis, male, heteronormative standard?
Oh my god, are you fucking joking? Just Kat, are you fucking serious? It's not you fucking talking, it's the patriarchy! It is me talking! You are not listening!
No, society puts things into your mind.
I don't care about society. I feel like shit!
Kat, you need to smash all beauty standards.
But I can't even get out of bed.
You have to love yourself.
You need to find your inner fucking warrior. Become a bad bitch.
Just like you did last year.
But that wasn't even real.
It looked real.
That was the point.
I found it inspiring.
Shut the fuck up!
Love yourself! 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 Love yourself!
So nice series, right? We see Kat here, one of the main characters, comparing herself with the beauty ideals and standards and her beautiful friends on one hand. But what we also see is what you can call toxic positivity. And normally I would say it's always good to stay optimistic, to try to be happy and stay positive whenever it's load shedding, stay positive. But if you give optimism and positivity to the wrong person at the wrong time, then it can lead to extra stress. That's what happens to Kat. Her friends are saying, yeah, you have to find your interior warrior. You have to love yourself. If it's have to, it leads to increasing stress for this generation, which we can call toxic positivity. Now, luckily, what we increasingly see is that young people are trying to find their authentic selves, even on social media. I'm not sure how many of you know an app called Be Real. Yeah, some of you do. It's not a new app. It's a French company that started it a couple of years ago, but it only got popular in the past months, actually, around the world. And so what it does, it sends prompts at random times, and then you get 2 minutes to take a picture. Only 2 minutes, and that's why it's called Be Real, because you're in the moment, you get the prompt, everyone gets the prompt at the same time if you're in the same time zone, luckily. And then you get 2 minutes to take a picture, and it takes a picture automatically. It takes 2 pictures at the same time with your front camera facing you and with the other camera. So you're taking a picture of what you're doing at that time, but also how you're feeling. And then it posts it, and you can only watch the pictures of the others, if you're friends in social media, if you have posted something yourself that day. Otherwise, you won't see the pictures of the others. So it's, of course, it's a way to engage with you, but it's also a good example of how even in social media, we see a move to more reality, more realness. Compare that to curated Instagram pictures, and you know where the difference is at. So it's becoming more popular with young girls and boys to be real and really show their real lives. We also see role models like Bella. This is Bella Hadid without makeup. And also at the moment when she was weeping in an Instagram live and disclosing actually how she is dealing with anxiety problems and depression. And the more real people and supermodels, celebrities, role models are doing this, the more it communicates that it's okay not to feel okay. And it's okay to talk about the fact that life is not always fun. So the opposite of toxic positivity, you could say. So Bella Hadid, but also Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka, all part of Generation Z. So there is something changing. What we also see is that this continuous comparison, their social media, of course, play a role. And so Lush, which can be seen as the body shop for Generation Z, decided to stop all social media channels. So since the 26th of November last year, they stopped Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok, stating, and this is the last message from the South African Facebook page, stating, be somewhere else. Don't spend your time on social media because you lose time, but it's not real life. And what they're saying, and it's a long quote, I know, from the inventor of the bath bombs, the things you throw in your bath and gives you a fantastic bath, I think. He says, it would be wrong to still be on social media because it does the opposite of what I really want to obtain with my brand. The DNA of Lush is actually unwind, relax, take a bath, chill. And TikTok, for instance, is the algorithms keeps you glued to the screen. You get one video, and then the next video, next video, next video. And before you know it, you lose 4 hours and it's in the middle of the night. And yeah, you have to get up in the morning to go to school. So they stopped this social media, quite a bold move because they're really targeting Generation Z and they're not on social media anymore. So trying to find other connections with this generation by doing this type of campaign as well. We previously saw other brands challenging beauty standards. Dove, part of Unilever, for 14 years they've been communicating about the beauty standards in their industry, and recently they did this update of the campaign for Real Beauty, which is called the reverse selfie. So they're showing how a girl is posting a selfie on socials, but then reversing the video. So taking away all the filters, everything that she has erased from the picture to in the end up with how she looks like when she didn't do all these steps before posting a picture of herself on social media. And even without the makeup and without all the filters and removing, it's definitely a nice looking girl. But the message of Dove is actually that by using this type of face editing and filtering, we are not only removing freckles and impurities of the skin, but also removing the confidence of this generation. And in the research, they know that 8 out of 10 by the age of 13 have already been using face editing apps like Facetune, for instance. So they're questioning this, and they're also raising awareness among parents to take care of this and to talk to their kids about why this can be negative for how they feel. So removing confidence, we are also witnessing this in South Africa. When we asked South African youth, do you often lack confidence? 45% agrees. So of course we didn't ask it directly like that, but on a scale. So again, half of the generation is often lacking confidence. And so it would be great if there would be a drink that gives you confidence, like the magic potion giving you confidence, like the drink you can see on the screen. And actually it's not an animation, it's a real existing drink. And it's some Gen Z entrepreneurs in Beverly Hills, US, came up with the idea to create an alternative, a Gen Z alternative to Red Bull. Red Bull is all about giving you extra energy, sugar, taurine, caffeine. But they say that's not what we need as Generation Z. We actually need more confidence. So the drink is called Confidence, and it has mood boosting ingredients like GABA, HTP5, magnesium, B vitamins, rhodiola, all there to help you give a boost in how you feel, more on the mental health than the physical health, because that's really the crisis that this generation is going through. So up till now, you could say, Joeri, okay, that's quite a negative story on your daughters and this generation. They lack confidence, they're stressed out, they have toxic positivity. Now, just to comfort you, we also tracked happiness scores on a scale across the world. And what we see is that Gen Z is not feeling less happy than other generations. In South Africa specifically, it's the Gen Y or the millennials that are feeling the least happy. So many of you, I guess. And I think it's related to two things. On one hand, this generation is not living with their parents anymore, so they have to make sure that they can pay the cost of living, but they're also working in jobs, sometimes raising very young children that don't sleep at night, like Hank's children. And then being there awake in the morning, still dealing with your company or with your clients. So this combination builds a lot of stress for generation, a lot of stress, but also a lot of unhappiness for this generation. But Gen Z is not less happy than older generations. So I'm focusing back on Gen Z, not on Hank in this presentation. So what we see is that they're still happy and still positive, although they say it's been difficult times. And yes, we feel stressed. On the other hand, for instance, about the pandemic, they said, we also looked at it in a positive way. Like the silver lining of the crisis was we had more time to self-reflect, to think about what's important in our lives, and also to focus on personal growth. Some of them said, I've learned a new foreign language because I had some more time. I was at home, there was not much to do. Shops were closed, restaurants were closed. So I took this time to learn something new. Some said I learned to code because that will be important in the future. So they worked on their skills really, as you can see in the graph as well. And they're expecting a bit the same of brands. So they want to achieve new stuff in life. And they also want to pay more for brands that are supporting their life goals. So some examples in the UK, we had an alcohol-free beer brand called Freestar, and they did a mentoring WhatsApp hotline, recognizing, acknowledging that especially the young generation lost their jobs when they were working in hospitality, for instance. Many more of them are working in hospitality or in shops. And I said that UK has the same problem as South Africa, so high youth unemployment. They created this mentoring WhatsApp hotline in which young people could directly connect to executives working for BBC, for Tesla, to get advice on how to prepare for a job interview, how to write an application letter in a direct WhatsApp connection. Here in South Africa, we had Maybelline, L'Oreal brand, as one of the brands working together again with the South African Anxiety and Depression Group, creating this WhatsApp hotline also, where you could, on every day, 7 days a week, get help if you felt bad in the end. So this first part was all about stress, feeling broken. And here a brand plays a role in coaching people. So instead of preaching, we should coach young people. That's the first part. Are there any questions in the chat? Thank you. While you're checking that, are there any questions here offline? So there's 4 sections. I will ask some questions after each section instead of doing the Q&A at the end. You can always post your questions in the chat, and then Henk will be my direct live connection. There is a question.
No questions yet.
No questions. Questions in the room? Are you still awake? Yeah. Okay. Let's move to the second topic. It's a bit more lighthearted, luckily. As you can see, I had to find words that have the okay inside it. Otherwise, we couldn't do the visual design trick there. So are you jokey? Totally different than are you broken? But not totally different. But because one way of dealing with stress is de-stressing or escapism. And playfulness, humor, or jokiness is actually helping our generation to deal with the struggles in life. So a great example of how an advertiser in the insurance industry in Europe has been working on this. So last year, about 1 year ago, at the start of the academic year, they did this large billboard campaign with the headline, "Go Get in Trouble." It was the first year that students could get physically back to uni. Before that, it was all remote in Europe. So they said, "Go get in trouble." And then, of course, announcing that there is a student insurance for the parents. They can pay a monthly fee, and then your student can do whatever he or she likes, and you're still insured as a parent. You also see the billboards to the right, which looks vandalized, but it's actually part of the campaign. So they work together with GCD Code to create vandalized billboards themselves. It was not vandalized by young people or students. To support, of course, the headline of the campaign, which is the playfulness and the humor that this generation really likes. Also in South Africa, we see more than 6 out of 10 of Generation Z stating they are willing to pay more for brands that have a sense of humor, that are playful, because again, it de-stresses and it gives some escapism from sometimes the hard struggles they're facing with. And I think one great example locally here in South Africa is Nando's. Nando's has really been building the brand around humor and around this playfulness, but at the same time also criticizing what's happening and voicing some comments on what's happening.
Tonight we bring you a very different story. Let's meet Ishmael Kominati and his family.
Welcome, John. I've seen him on TV. Give me a moment. It's Honey Manifested time. Honey Manifested. Stage to stage 4. Stage to stage 4. This is our genderator.
It's called Andre.
They just for show.
This one's called Coburg, this one's called Kusile.
I love our Arctic chamber.
We don't have to go outside to freeze. We can freeze right here.
The cold water makes me feel alive.
Cold water's good for the veins.
Tightens up everything.
It's great for hide and seek.
Please, stage 4.
Okay, with stage 4, you get 4 free sides.
Stage 4 load shedding will be extended by 9 days.
When days are dark, sides are many. I'm Shahan Ramkisur. Wow.
It's the CR17 model. Should work, but it doesn't.
So a great example of how you can use humor to connect with people all in the same shitty situation at certain times. And also we had a bit of delay here with our event because of the load shedding. This is important to this generation. Again, they're looking for escapism. So also if you look at the way they are communicating, the social media that really work with them are often built around creativity, about creating memes, about having a joke, sometimes in cheek that my parents won't understand. Then you can say, okay, boomer. So some brands are really working on this. In media, for instance, Netflix did a great campaign to announce a new season of Stranger Things. That was actually, was the one success thing that they did this year. And they actually allowed their fans, their viewers, to create content themselves based on the teaser trailer movie, but also allowing them to use the Kate Bush song. So one of the examples, but there's more than 1 million videos on TikTok, all using the same Kate Bush song, all referring to Stranger Things. So imagine that's your brand. It is really doing the campaign for you. It's not even costing that much because it's in the end, the fans that are creating the content and are doing the social media campaign and creating something viral. It was also good for Kate Bush because the 1985 song Running Up That Hill re-entered the billboards on #2, just beyond Harry Styles' new song. And all she had to do is just allow Netflix to use the song in the series and in the campaign. Now, this creativity, this meme, this viral thing, it is important. Also, what we see is that Generation Z is moving their time towards virtual environments in gaming, which means that, for instance, in the past 6 months prior to the research, 1 out of 6 South African Gen Zers has created an avatar, which makes sense if you look at the amount of time they spent on online gaming. Like half of Generation Z, 18 to 25 in South Africa, is an online gamer, and it's the same for Generation Y. So 18 to 40 years old, half of this population is active in games. You also see esports important, but platforms like Twitch, I'm sure you're familiar with Twitch. I'm not a gamer myself. If I look at Twitch, like, what the hell is this about? I mean, this is other people playing games, commenting on other people playing games, and I don't understand the fun of that. But it is popular with this young generation. If you're more into games, it's a bit like if you're into sports, you like watching other people play sports, especially the professional people. With esports, it's actually the same, or with games, it's the same. But to me, it does make sense. But yeah, I'm getting old. This also explains why people are increasingly paying more to look good in games. So paying for digital goodies, for skins, for fashion items for your avatar. To me, again, it doesn't make sense. Why should you pay for how you look like in a game? But if you spend so many hours in a game, if you, as you can see in the last graph, you're not just there to play the game, you're there to chat with your friends in the evening and to connect with them. So it's like hanging out in the mall, it's now hanging out in Fortnite or Roblox. Then it does make sense to look good because it's part of your identity, especially if you're young. In the game, you meet your friends again, so you want to look good, you want to pay extra to look good in that game. So this metaverse mindset, we already recognize it with young people. We as marketers, we call it a metaverse. When you say that to Generation Z, they say, meta what? This is just my game. I'm playing my game. I don't believe in a metaverse, but they're all active in Roblox, Minecraft, Animal Crossing, Fortnite, GTA, name it, FIFA. So they're already present in the metaverse, which I call games in the end. A great example of how a brand can use this new environment is Pfizer. So Pfizer, pharmaceutical company, was to me a surprise that they were connecting well with the young generation. But when they saw that in Brazil, the willingness to get vaccinated against COVID was quite low, they worked together with GTA, only in Brazil, to create an avatar vaccination mission, which sounds a bit silly to me. Get your avatar vaccinated as a mission in GTA. Sounds boring, if you ask me. But what they really did well is if you got your avatar vaccinated, you received a badge, and with the badge, you received more immunity while playing the game. So in the other missions of GTA, you could play longer because you were vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine in the game. And Pfizer did a pre and a post test. And of course, they saw not only raising the awareness of the vaccination, but also the willingness to get vaccinated was really up after this campaign in GT. And it shows the relevance of being present in virtual worlds in general. In the beverage F&B, Coca-Cola also understands we need to be present in this new virtual environment. So Coca-Cola started a new sub-brand, Coca-Cola Creations, launching limited edition Coca-Colas, totally against what I did before, because before they said, no, Coca-Cola is Coca-Cola, iconic bottle, and we won't change it. Today, they have a separate brand launching, for instance, the Coca-Cola Starlight, which is space flavored. I've tasted it, and it tastes like vanilla. But maybe space tastes like vanilla. Who will say? I don't know. There's a QR code on the can, and with the QR code, you could access an online gig of Ava Max. So an online concert, not an offline concert, but only if you had the QR code of the can. Then they released the Coca-Cola Bite, which is pixel flavored. Again, how does a pixel taste like? But here the QR code gave access to a separate island on Fortnite. So you could play extra games on Fortnite, only accessible if you had the QR code of this specific limited edition Coke. And then they worked together with Marshmallow, DJ Marshmallow. And there the QR codes allowed you to download the new tune of Marshmallow created specifically for this campaign that you could only download if you had the QR code of Coca-Cola. So one of the themes that I'm not covering in this presentation is, are you bespoke? Also as okay. So it's about personalization, individualization, being on trend, but also giving a limited access to stuff, which also works. But I wanted to show this in this part, because for instance, this last one, Marshmallow, was only communicated on Twitch. So again, only targeting the gamers, the ones who are active on online media, to stay relevant and to keep that connection with this young generation. So jokiness, generation wants to de-stress, want to escape. Playful, humoristic campaigns really work with them. And they're also more active in virtual worlds. So we need to be present there. And our brand there can be a platform for creativity. We should allow our fans to work with our content like Netflix did with the Kate Bush song. Or at least we should offer escapism like Nando's did and humor while criticizing what's happening around the world. Any questions in the chat, Hank?
Yes.
Okay.
We have one. This mic working? Testing.
Yeah.
The question is, to what extent is Gen Z conscious about what they post online?
Much more conscious is what we see than previous generations. Comparing to millennials, for instance, Facebook, they are not on Facebook because Facebook to them, it's something for their parents. And also Facebook is too permanent. If you post something on Facebook, people will be able to see what you've posted 1 year ago or in their lives 1 week ago. And they don't want to be confronted with what I've posted 1 week ago. So they're more active in Snapchat and more ephemeral media. And also the Be Real example I gave, it's also only there for your friends who also post something at the same time, but they're much more into curating their content and much more in creating closed groups. So only sharing my real life with my real friends, not posting something on Facebook that everyone can see. Yeah. Any other questions? Questions in the room? Yeah.
Hi, Joeri.
Hi.
It's more a thought than an actual question, but the theme of humor and playfulness, especially in financial services, how would that apply? Because we're talking about very serious things, especially insurance, for example. Yeah, you can't get jokey about life cover.
I already gave the example of the Swedish insurance company. So that was Go Get in Trouble on the campaign you saw, that's an insurance product. So I think you can do it if you have the right message and even being more lighthearted, understanding what really plays for this generation, it can still work in line with the product that you're selling. But I understand it's not easy in finance, but there's always ways. And I think one way is making things more simple. I will come back to finance, by the way, that in the last chapter, it's all about finance and future. So clearly they're looking for financial knowledge and literacy because they want to invest. They want to see the results of, okay, I have a bit of savings. What can we do with it? So they're looking for expertise. But if your expertise is too boring adults way, they will go for other types of expertise and other types of influencers rather than the bank. So it's finding the right balance. But I will come back to that later on. Yes, another question.
It's not really a question. I just recently saw, I don't know if when you were driving around Sandton and Bryanston, Pineapple Insurance, all their signs, and they're like 9 out of 10 people will recommend us. What the F, Jim, and like things like that. Yeah. So, you know, I think there is ways to do it. And obviously they are a bit different brand, but you can clearly see the people moving into that directions.
And I think it's important to, so I'm giving him 4 topics, and 4 topics are actually 4 entrances to this generation, and you shouldn't check all 4 of them. I think you should think of what's my brand DNA, what's my license to play, and which of the 4 is really something that is close to my brand or in which I have the credibility to talk like that. That's quite important. Otherwise, you will be seen as, oh, this is fake. They're just trying to sell me something. Yeah. Yes, one more question.
I think also just a broad question. I don't know if you'll get there, but a few years ago, everything was about being sincere and genuine. And I'm just, is there still a place for that? Or is it just a fine balance between it? Just also, is it a bit of both, like being boring, more or less, side of a business?
So kill boredom, kill boring when you address this young generation. But there's a difference between boring and serious. I think my first topic on the mental health struggles, that was rather serious. So creating relevance, this is only one of the themes, right? So the next theme is actually, it's more about the serious stuff in life. But again, it's a question of finding the right ways to address more serious issues with them, because they have a more short attention span. So it's about, think of Nando's, they're also criticizing something, but at the same time, not in a boring way. So it's more one way of connecting. But clearly there's other ways of creating relevance, which is in the other teams. And the next theme is actually all about that. So this is about wokeness, also as okay, the word woke. And you cannot talk about wokeness, you cannot talk about Generation Z, sorry, without talking about wokeness. And often, me as a Gen Xer, I'm quite skeptic about that. My oldest daughter, now 18, 3 years ago, she came in and she said, Dad, I'm not going to school anymore on Fridays. And I was like, what, is there part-time schooling now? It was before the pandemic. And she said, no, are you living on another planet? There's global warming, there's climate change. Have you heard about Greta Thunberg? So we're having the Fridays for Future. We're skipping school on Fridays to teach you a lesson. And I was like, teach me a lesson? Well, teach the government a lesson, teach adults a lesson. And I had read in the newspaper that on Sundays, there's also climate protests going on in Belgium. So I said, yeah, but there's a protest on Sunday. Can't you go to the one on Sunday and then still go to school on Friday? And she said, are you mad? You don't understand how media work. And I said, oh, shit, this is a 14-year-old saying to me, working 20, 25 years in marketing media, you don't understand how media work. And then she said, if we do it on Sunday, probably it will be like a small article in the newspaper on page 10. But if we skip school on Fridays, then we make our point and it will be front page news. I was like, okay, maybe she has a point. Maybe she knows media better than I do. So often we think woke, but what are they really doing something apart from talking about it? But yes, they're activists, but often digital activists. I'll give one other example. During the elections in the US, we had this campaign.
Oh no, I signed up for a Trump rally and I can't go. I'm sick. Oh no, I signed up for a Trump rally and I can't go. I'm sick.
So this was actually a video on TikTok. It was only there less than 24 hours, then removed. And the idea behind it, launched by BTS, you know, BTS, K-pop band, quite popular. They said we should boycott Trump by all signing up for the rally in Oklahoma and then not showing up. And the result you can see to the right. So actually Trump was speaking in a stadium that could fit 25,000 people, but there were only 6,000 people there because the other 19,000 were all Gen Zers that during the weekend all signed up for it and then I can't go. And so the Republicans were surprised by this. And the clever thing about this, it was on TikTok, so a separate Gen Z channel. And they removed the video within 24 hours because they knew if we keep it online, then the campaign team will hear about it and they will take actions to make sure that the stadium will fill up. So they removed it within 24 hours. The campaign team didn't know what was happening and the result was world news. So then you can say, oh, they're lazy, they only talk about things. But on the other hand, they do know how media work. Think of my daughter. They do know how social media work, how you can, with an online activism, you can actually create change in the end. So you can call it clicktivism or digital activism, which is exactly what this generation is doing. 1 out of 4 in South Africa in our sample has participated in an online protest in the past 6 months. I talked about Greta Thunberg. It's important to see also the relevance of different topics for this generation to know as a brand, as a company, which are the ones that are really important to tackle. And as you can see, global warming and climate change, it is there in the top 10 when we asked young people, suppose you would be the next president and you can only choose 3 things to change, to tackle, which one would you choose? And we gave a list of 21 different items. And you can see global warming on number 6. But you can also see in South Africa that poverty is number 1, unemployment is number 2, much higher than climate change, but also racism is there, suppression and abuse of women, gender-based violence is quite important. Also here in the region, health problems and virus outbreaks are also there, of course, because we did the research in April. If we would do it right now, for the moment, maybe it would be a bit lower. So that's the time influence of doing research. But you also see what the local relevance doesn't mean that sustainability is not important to them anymore, but the social issues of ESG, actually, equality, diversity, and also the economic issues are much more important to them. I can see that time is running out, so we will have to skip some parts to make sure that Anneri can still do her part. When we actually asked them different items about brands, we saw that 43% here in South Africa says, I'm willing to pay more for female-owned brands. So again, female empowerment, but also 55% for Black-owned brands. And actually, Google saw it in searches as well. After Black Lives Matters, the search for Black-owned businesses went up with 600%, so times 6. So at that time, they changed their Google business pages and they allowed businesses to indicate that they're Black-owned and female-led or women-led, as you can see. So these are only 2 social issues. In general, we see that this generation wants to fight inequality and taboos that are still there in society. Also, when it comes to gender, gender fluidity, LGBTQIA+. So 3/4 in South Africa says, I still see too many gender stereotyping in advertising or in society, in media. And almost half of them, 1 out of 2, states that they know at least 1 person who prefers to be referred to with a gender neutral pronoun rather than she or he, which is quite a lot. It's 1 out of 2 of Generation Z, 18 to 25 years here in South Africa as well. So things are changing in society, and that's firstly reflected in media. DC Comics, the new Superman, is bisexual. And also, again, this gives an entrance to connect with this generation to show that you care about the values that they care about, that you're just reflecting with your brand the personality that they have. Sometimes, again, in a more playful way.
This is Chagalaka Norris, and he's hella spicy. So spicy, he once became a manager just to viable Karen. And Yazin, he's so spicy, he eats Nando's chicken in Savannah ads.
This is Savannah Chill Chili. Drink it or don't, I don't care.
Crisp and dry with hints of chili and ginger.
Playful and humoristic, but also showing diversity and showing that you understand how society is evolving. Coming back to another point that I made on how important online environments are and avatars are for this generation. Also, we asked, do you think the virtual world or the gaming world is more equal than the real world or the offline world? Because the gaming world is also real. Half of next gens, so both Gen Z and millennials in South Africa says, yes, I agree. And it's significantly more than older generations. And this is creating new opportunities again for media brands and for brands in general. Not sure if you're familiar with a show called Alter Ego. Alter Ego, you can look at it as a crossover between Masked Singer, international format, and The Voice, for instance, or X Factor talent show. So they're actually using avatars to allow people to perform like Masked Singer beyond the stage, where the avatar is actually performing on stage for the jury. So this allows introverts, for instance, to participate in a talent show, and it creates digital inclusivity, a topic that Anneri will also talk about later on. Let's have a look at how that works.
Lost dreams and second chances are reignited when singers from all walks of life become the stars they've always dreamed of being.
Look what we got here. What?
Growing up, people always judged me by the way I looked and the way I sang, but I realized I don't have to be afraid.
In front of some of the biggest names in music, will.i.am, Alanis Morissette, and Nick Lachey, as they search for the next generation superstar.
I can't wait to meet the human beings behind these alter egos.
An alter ego actually really helps me a lot in life.
I like the hair. Yo, do that again, bro.
So nice example of how technology on even avatars or a gaming environment can create inclusivity, and even in media can already be used. So when we're talking about more serious topics, wokeness is serious. It's about what's wrong in the world and how this generation wants to create a better world. So they want to see change, and they're also activists. They're digital activists, but they're still activists. And they also want to change taboos, and they're looking for more equality and diversity. And the metaverse or gaming is also helping to do this. So here a brand creates impact to show that you reflect the same values, that you understand that they want a more diverse society, that there's social issues, but also again, unemployment and the economic crisis is important, and to collectively help create a better world, you could say, which is a more serious topic than just being playful or humoristic. Any questions? Yes.
You mentioned that there was a willingness to pay more for female-led brands. So was that a skew from both the male and female participants? What did they feel the same way?
Well, I should check into the detailed results. I can imagine that maybe it's more females, but I think in Gen Z, this generation is really more about equality, also when it comes to gender. So I'm not even sure whether there was a significant difference between the guys in Gen Z and the girls in Gen Z. I would expect it with all the generations to be like that, but for Gen Z, I should check into the details of the stats. Question online?
Yes, we also have an online question. If you do face-to-face interviews with Gen Z, how can we make sure you get the most honest opinions and feedback from them, as they are very cautious in what they say and respond? Being in a face-to-face situation, they cannot delete or amend their comments, so they might hold back on what they really think.
Yeah, and I would recommend online research. So actually, it's just, of course, a bit commercial answer here, because Insights Consulting is doing online research, but that's one of the advantages when we involve them in online communities, that they can post at any time anonymously their opinion. I think, yeah, that's a good way to address this issue. Did you ask that question yourself, or it was really in the chat? Okay, let's move to the last topic. And the last topic is, will it work out? So I already announced that there will be a more financial topic also for all our banking clients. And Bergh also has okay in words. They're worried a bit. They're a bit, let's say the future is a bit uncertain, and it's not becoming less uncertain because geopolitics, things that are happening in the world, the pandemic, one crisis after the other crisis. So I'm a bit uncertain about my future, and the black tax and paying back and cost of living. But on the other hand, again, this is an optimistic generation. And it's great to see that young people are still optimistic. And this creates, again, entrances to connect with this generation. For instance, with this African Bank campaign.
Question was then asked, but why don't we form our own bank in South Africa? 70 rand was raised and put on the table out of our pocket.
Who starts a bank with 70 rands?
When every other bank was started, it was just a business opportunity. For African Bank, the founders saw an opportunity to uplift the lives of its people. They opened their doors in 1975. This was a bank that believed in you. Every product gave you permission to create the life you deserved. Every loan helped you send your children to school and to start businesses.
Sure, boy.
Every savings account brought you closer to a brighter future. If African Bank had the audacity to start a bank with only 70 rands, what's stopping you from being audacious? But it's not about the 70 rands. To achieve anything of significance, you must have indestructible belief. If those around you don't believe in you, make the rest of the world believe in you. Don't just live for the sake of living. Be audacious. Be relentless. Go after what you believe in. And when it comes to banking, don't just bank for the sake of banking. Have the audacity to join the bank that believes in you.
So working on this audacity, and unfortunately Rick passed away earlier this year. There's a link here with the first topic of my presentation. He was also suffering with mental health struggles. But the theme of believing in yourself, it is really important to connect with this generation, because that's really what they do. When they understand that they will have to work hard to really achieve something in life, many of them in South Africa already have a side hustle, are working hard to gain extra money by driving an Uber, by doing other side hustles while they are studying or working in other jobs as well, because it's a way to actually get somewhere and get out of poverty as well. It's something that really starts at an early age with this generation. This is an example, Jamie Ibanez in the US, who was already selling snacks to his fellow school students when he was only 14, 15 years old. He was less lazy than them, went to the store, bought snacks, and then resold them in his class, made profit margin on that. So it's really entrepreneurship. And he saved $5,000 by doing so. Then when he graduated at the age of 18, he was really passionate about snacks. So he wanted to work for Mondelez, the snacking company, which also registered for the event, but I'm not sure that here, maybe they're online. So he worked for Mondelez, but sorry, Mondelez, when after 1 year of working there, he said, yeah, but it's not the same thing as having my own business. And this hunger for entrepreneurship, pun intended, when you're into snacking, we recognize that this across the globe. So many young people say, I want to start my own company. But in South Africa, it was really high, 84%, 18 to 25-year-olds says, I want to start my own business. And of course, if youth unemployment is at the rate of 50%, you're trying to find your way out, you're trying to create your own jobs. So it's a bit like a dream, you could say, to do it. And actually, it's what Jamie did. So Jamie used his $5,000, bought his first vending machine and started a vending machine business. And today he owns 32 vending machines. That is earning him $10,000 a month. But he also has this YouTube channel, as you can see on the slides, where he is sharing his lessons on how to start your own vending machine business. They're quite open about his passion, but also earning money with it, of course. So that's the social media knowledge again. So the more videos he's posting on YouTube, the more he's earning. He gets in between $5,000 and $10,000 a month from ad revenues on YouTube from creating videos like that. And he's not the only vending machine influencer, if that's even a word. If you go on YouTube, you will see different young people doing the same, starting their own business, but also starting a YouTube channel to earn extra money. You can call it the passion economy, like believing in your passion. For Jamie, it was snacks. For others, it's like refurbishing old shoes or clothes, or creating my own clothing brand or my own makeup. And again, it's also a bit driven by certain role models or by things they see around them. Globally, Elon Musk is one of the role models, a young guy, a rich guy, who is like the new Leonardo da Vinci, changing the world, being very successful, but also being very playful and humorous on Twitter as well. So again, this combination. But here locally, there's Drip, where this guy, as a 14-year-old, wanted to get out of poverty by doing something with old shoes and selling them. And today, Drip is really like a sneaker brand that's really successful, that's working together with creatives, with stars. So this is the dream, you can say, of South African youth to do the same. And again, it creates opportunities for branding, for brands, even for businesses. This is H&M, known from the fashion retail business. And they have a wholesale business line. So they have H&M blank stables. As you can see, white labels. There's a very small H&M somewhere on the label. But a white label because others can print their name on it. And so they're selling clothes in large quantities. You can buy up to 200 t-shirts of the same size with wholesale prices, not H&M prices. Because they understand that this generation wants to create a business themselves. So why not cater to this with wholesale prices and create a separate business line, even if you're normally into the retail business. Quite clever because they have the supply chain, of course, already. They know the fashion business and how to get to the t-shirts for good prices. Another example from banking, NetBank, working together with YFM to create again a connection with this hustling. So they said, if you are into DJing, if you have a good voice, why not participate in our contest? And you can win 30,000 rands if you're one of the new stars. Actually, a talent show as a bank. It's again, serious bank, but still connecting with this generation. This time more on the hustling, and I want to start my own business. I want my talent to show it to the world and to earn money with it. Coming back to money, money and status symbols are more important to this generation than to older generations. Also in Africa, 42% of both Gen Z and Gen Y says, yeah, yes, this is important to me, significantly higher than younger generations, which means that they're also eager to learn more about financial planning. And of course, they've turned to social media first to get their financial planning advice, which creates this opportunity for brands to be present there or to work together with influencers like Financial Bunny here, quite popular in South Africa. Some influencers are to avoid, I must admit, like this guy.
$500,000 for my Rolls Royce, $750,000 for my Aventador, another $250,000 for a few other cars each. How do I have this at 22 years old? Let me tell you, it's NFTs. If you're not capitalizing on this multi-billion-dollar market, you've got it all wrong. Join my Discord and I'm going to teach you exactly how to get into this industry, whether you have little to no money, a medium amount of money, or a high intensive amount of capital to generate massive revenue. Join the Discord.
So this is the type of guy I wouldn't like my girls to follow and to spend my allowance on. But there's many of these, and I think their financial institution, the bank, can really play a role to indicate like this is fake news. This is a pyramid scheme. This is not really something you can trust. And they're very eager to find a voice that helps them in financial planning, a trustful voice in a non-boring way in the end. Not always humorous, but still connecting with them. When we looked in the type of investments they're doing, 73%, 7 out of 10 did an investment in the past year, and the majority in stocks, just like other generations. But the 4 you can see on the screen are actually significantly higher than all the generations here in South Africa, where we see crypto, for instance, 28%. It's quite high. Even comparing it globally, it's higher than other markets we see. But in every market, we see that it's typically Gen Z and a bit millennials that are investing more in crypto and trusting crypto. NFTs in South Africa is quite low. It's only 4%. It's ×3 in other markets around the world, so around 12% for the moment among this young generation. But you can also see that they're investing more in creative things, we could say. So again, this shows that creativity, coming back to the point I made earlier, creativity is a social currency to them in their social media, but also in their investments. So an NFT for them, it's art and an investment combined. But they're also investing in art and even in luxury fashion or streetwear. So buying this limited edition pair of Nikes not to wear, but to keep in the box, because the minute I wear them, they lose their value, and I put them in my closet. And then maybe next year they will be worth double, and I can sell them again. So it's an investment to them, which explains also why sneaker exchanges in South Africa are so important. And it also explains why luxury fashion brands like Gucci are already very present in gaming environments and in NFTs. So here you can see the Gucci Queen Dionysus handbag, which you can buy for $3,400 in physical Gucci store. Not a bargain, I would say. But they did a campaign on Roblox, Gucci Garden, which was a gender neutral part of Roblox, where you could buy the same handbag, well, virtually, digitally, pixeled in Roblox for $5.50, only for a few hours. And one girl bought it and was able to resell it for $4,115. And compare that to the physical handbag, so even for a price higher than the physical handbag. So again, it shows the importance of digital environments, but also digital ownership versus physical ownership, which is also something we can see in the last case study I will share with you. And it's a VW campaign to announce the release or the launch of the new VW Polo here in South Africa. So a car ad, but not as we know it, more like in a gaming environment. And they did this for 1 week in April and spring this year on YouTube. And every day the commercial was a bit different, and they've hidden NFTs inside the commercial. And if you could recognize where the NFT was, took a picture of it, send it through Instagram, then you became the owner of the NFT. So they're relating to the relevance of digital ownership and NFTs and making a car a bit more cool for this young generation. So this last part, will it work out? We talked about how money is important, new types of investments, the hunger for entrepreneurship as well, and the hustling culture. And here a brand can play a role to support micro entrepreneurs, either the way H&M is doing, creating a new business, or really addressing this need of hustling, the NetBank example, for instance. That's it. You can download the full report with more results by scanning the QR code, or I'm sure in follow-up we will send it. Well, thank you for your attention. For the last questions, we move this after Anneri's presentation because we started a bit late and also I took a bit more time to talk. Anneri, I do want to give you the floor before. Yeah.
I'm not used to a Mac.
Hi everyone, welcome. I'm going to jump right into it. So I do have a fairly short presentation, but quite a lot of content that I do want to get through. So today we'll be focusing on the concept of digital inclusivity and how brands can achieve that to delight their consumers and their customers. So the results from this study was done off the bat of our annual SITEisfaction measure, our quantitative measure that we do, and that evaluates consumers' perceptions of mobile and internet banking. I'm not going to reveal those results today. We can wait for next week for that, but I'm going to focus on our qualitative study today. So it's the first time since the inception of SITEisfaction back in, 2012, that we've added a qualitative component onto the study. So let's get right into it. Ooh. I can use the buttons. Oh. I'll use that. Okay. I'm supposed to know more about this than you use. All right. So the reason for the inclusion was mostly inspired by our 2022 Consumer Trends Report, which was released earlier this year and actually presented by Henk. And that focused on the current and emerging trends across the globe. So for South Africa specifically, we saw the idea of inclusive connectivity somewhere between nascent and emerging categories. So many trends in the nascent category. So these are trends that currently have low attitudinal and behavioral adoption, but moving into the right direction, represent more leading edge ways of thinking. So if you really want to innovate and inspire, that is where you would want to focus. So when it comes to digital inclusiveness, South Africa historically has had quite a big divide between those with access to internet and apps and applications and things like that versus those who don't. But that is changing. So at the moment, some sources say that we are at about 60% internet penetration, while other sources say 70%. If you look at it a decade ago, even 15 years ago, that was single digits. So while connecting online has accelerated during the pandemic specifically, most South African learners have remained quite dependent on in-person learning. So during the Consumer Trends presentation, we looked at two examples specifically, one from Vodacom and one from Investec. And now both those brands were subsidizing data costs to enable learners to engage with content a little bit more online. So we wanted to take the idea of this inclusive connectivity or digital inclusiveness further by exploring it specifically within the banking space. I do think that the insights transcend banking and is really applicable to all industries. So before I get into the results, I'm going to very quickly punt our methodology. So we used a qualitative approach. We weren't really that interested in the hard numbers, but more the experiences and the feelings regarding what consumers think about digital inclusiveness. So the good news is that contrary to popular belief, you don't need a big sample size when it comes to qualitative research. So data saturation is normally reached at around 40 participants, engaged participants, and we had 50 incredibly very active and engaged participants. It ran for just less than 2 weeks, our qualitative community. So we had more than enough people and time to create a beautiful, insightful story. Even better news is that we have our own very cool proprietary platform called The Square that we use to engage with our participants. So The Square is enabled for long-term and short-term engagements, qualitative and quantitative approaches. But for today, I'm just going to focus on the qualitative short-term benefits of it. Okay, so the starting point in terms of digital inclusivity is to understand 3 key aspects around it. So the first would be about the people. So that's including the most disadvantaged. And that's really looking at the who in terms of digital inclusivity. The second part is about the digital platforms and that all people, regardless of their situation, should have access to technology, information, communication, apps, as well as online content. And then the third part is about being connected to this digital world so that everyone through digital platforms are enabled to connect to this digital world. Okay, so now that we know what it means, why is it important? So this is a fairly obvious statement, but still worth saying. Life is online, right? Especially post-COVID. So the way we engage with our friends and family has changed. The way we consume news has changed. The way we shop. So think of something like Checkers 60/60. So if you think about it, digital inclusivity is really about bringing people closer together, but also, and predominantly, it's also about money and our money matters and being able to stay connected and control of our money through digital platforms. So digital inclusivity is also important because it helps overcome other banking access barriers. So what we found was that the more digital you are perceived, in general, consumers are more satisfied with a bank. So they're expecting this fully digital experience without needing to access a branch at all. So I'm not here trying to tell anyone that we need to banish branches forever, but we need to understand what role a branch can play versus being completely connected to this digital world. So if we think about a couple of, I want to say almost fairly obvious examples, so people having to travel to get to a branch, so the transport cost, the petrol cost, which is just through the roof at the moment, staying in queues, of course, people are very time poor at the moment as well. So it is quite a waste of their time. And then also people from more rural areas where it takes even more time and even more money to actually get to a branch. And then we also need to consider our other abled consumers. So those are people with some type of disability, and whether it's feasible for them to actually get to a branch. Is it not easier for them to be able to do all their banking online and digitally? So if you are going to be digitally inclusive, you do need to consider the role that bricks and mortar are actually playing, and even other channels like call centers, right? And whether it is helping or hindering for your consumers and your customers. Okay, so now we understand what it is, we understand why it's important, so let's get a little bit more technical. So what we found is that there are 3 A's to financial digital inclusivity. First, we have access, then we have ability, and then we have affordability. So access is all about your technical inclusion. So that's where the platform's ability around connectivity and connecting the human to the actual platform itself. Ability is about information inclusion. So there's 2 parts around that. The first part is around the actual communication itself. So that's things like updates and notifications, customer support that's on hand when needed. And then also, very importantly, the education and the upskilling part, and making sure that people and consumers know how to use a platform and how to navigate that platform. And that comes to the second part, which is the ease of use and navigation. So if I understand the platform better, there's a high likelihood that I would know better how to navigate this platform. So access and ability go hand in hand, right? Or fairly hand in hand. The platform and what the platform can do in terms of connecting the person with the features and the safety needs to go hand in hand with their ability to actually navigate this platform. And also independently based on the education and the upskilling that you have provided them to be able to navigate this platform. And then we have affordability. So that's all about economic inclusion. So we have 3 aspects to look at there: device, data, and then fees. So in terms of devices, it's really about, sorry, I've had a frog in my throat for the past 6 weeks, so I'm doing very well at the moment. So the first would be the device and the fact that they can actually or are able to afford a device. And then we have data, which they need to access the actual platform. And then banking fees. So it's all quite compounding when it comes to affordability. And given consumers' cost sensitivities and the rising living costs, it is becoming quite a big concern for the majority of consumers. So in terms of consumers' needs, we're going to look at our 3 A's again. So the length of the circle represents the extent of consumers' needs for each. So don't be alarmed. I'm not saying affordability is the absolute lowest, but we do need to consider what is important for them at the moment. So things like devices and data at the moment are not necessarily that much in banks' control. Not wholly, at the very least. We know banks are dabbling in the space at the moment, so there will eventually be an expectation from banks to make this cheaper as well. But at the moment, what is within your control would be fees. So that's a pain point for your consumers at the moment. So then if you look at access, these needs are regarding the technical functionality. Okay, sorry, and the capabilities of the platform. And there are 2 key parts to this. So we have platform usability. So that's about the speed and the reliability and the responsiveness that's important for your users when they engage with these platforms. It should be fast and quick to transact. They expect no glitches, no errors, no lags, no issues, apps and sites not being down at all. And then also offline access is very important. So what do they do when there's load shedding? And consider something like USSD then, and the role that it can and still play, even for those that are fully digitally connected. The second part would be security. And this is really something that was consistently mentioned in the community. So whether we asked them about security or not, security was mentioned. So they are looking for the base safety and security in terms of being protected from scammers and fraud and hackers and things like that. So access, as we said earlier, is very much interlinked with ability, because of the 3 A's, ability has the most needs. Let me show you. Because through information and communication and ease of use, their key concerns around access can also be alleviated. So 2 key parts to look at here would firstly be the communication aspect. So to win the trust of consumers, they need to feel in control of their finances. And always staying informed is quite a critical aspect for them to deliver on building on this trust. Notifications and alerts are important, so they need to be updated constantly in terms of what's happening with their finances, but also with the platform itself, if there are any security updates and things like that. And then customer support. So it should be easy for them to access some type of customer support agent when they do need the help. And these agents should be able to resolve their issues quite quickly as well, because that links with the whole idea of engaging with this digital world, right? It's about quick and instant access. And then we have ease of use as well. So ease of use in terms of making transactions with user-friendly navigation. So they're looking for fewer steps. It should be easy to find what they're looking for. They want customized dashboards, so when they log into their apps or, their online banking via a desktop or a laptop, they want to know exactly where they need to go. So we know something like a customized dashboard is already quite popular with most banking apps, but do your users know about it? That's the big question. Okay, how to alleviate these concerns and barriers from our 3 A's. So we have a couple of themes coming up there. The first would be, as I've mentioned, maybe I sound like a broken record by now, that digital security is a concern. And that comes not only from the issue around, them being protected from fraud and hackers and scammers and things like that, but it's also about the protection of their personal information. So that's something that was mentioned quite consistently as well, that they want banks to respect their personal information as well. And they need the communication around that to know that, their privacy has been respected. And that's been exacerbated obviously by the POPI Act. The second theme is ease through speed. So because they always want to stay connected, they want everything to happen fast as well. So we have 2 aspects around that. The first would be the technical issues, and that's completely out of their control. So the site or the app being down, there being glitches or errors and, essentially interrupting what they were busy with. And then the second would be the functionality and their need for the banks specifically to reduce the lag between inter-account transfers, inter-bank transfers, the fact that they need to pay for these types of things. They're not quite happy about that. Quite happy. They're not happy at all. I'm very mellow about it now. The third aspect is around affordability. So online banking means that they need to not only pay for fees, but also use their data. And it all adds up, especially for those without money to waste, which is pretty much everyone. So they want more of an understanding and more information around USSD specifically, and again, the role that that can play, but also zero-rated apps. So we know most banks do offer zero-rated apps, but a lot of consumers don't know about this. I think a big hype was made about it back in the day when it was initially introduced, but that kind of fell flat, and their awareness is no longer there. And the fourth theme is in terms of supporting the digital know-how. So that's all about education and how-to guides and guiding these consumers, whether they are old digital bankers or new digital bankers, not in age, but in terms of tenure and how long they've been using it, and helping them to better understand how to navigate these types of platforms, what's important on these platforms, what's not important, what do you need to take note of, how can you customize dashboards, how do you do this specific transaction, and by alleviating those education concerns that they potentially have, it also helps with the navigation, because if you teach me how to use your platform, I'm going to be able to navigate this platform easier as well. And then lastly would be enabling your other abled consumers. So quite a couple of concerns mentioned here in terms of devices. So there not being any, fairly priced devices out there for other abled consumers to be able to navigate a normal banking app or an internet banking platform. So anything from features not being user-friendly for them, or issues with color contrasting, or issues with how do I get hold of a call center agent? How are you helping me? And do you have alternative channels for me to potentially use when I need to get hold of a customer service agent? So a couple of things that they mentioned there, I think I've mostly touched on all of them, would be more user-friendly devices, different types of features, voice to text type of functionalities, voice command, and then, yeah, definitely some type of better assistance or advanced assistance, and potentially considering other types of channels to actually help them. Doesn't always have to be call center. Okay, so we know what it is, we know why it's important. We've given some suggestions in terms of how to alleviate the issues around digital inclusivity. So what about the demographics? So this was quite interesting. We looked for differences from a gender perspective, from a race perspective, from an income perspective, and even from specific bank perspective. So are there differences in terms of how someone banking with FNB feels versus someone banking with Time Bank? No differences at all, but we did find a couple of age differences. So this ties in quite nicely with Joeri's contents. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the age differences, but I do want to highlight just a couple of cool insights that we found. We've split it into 3 age categories. So boomers, and then your slightly older Gen X. So as you can see, in terms of the 3 A's that we've discussed and what's important for them, right at the bottom, you can see that ability is incredibly important for them. And the reason for that is that just as they've gotten used to a platform or a new app or a new feature, it changes once again. So they can never keep up with the changing technology or the changing innovation. So they always feel a little bit behind the curve. They're not very comfortable, and it's difficult for them. So it is quite a big concern for them. And in terms of other things that make them tick as well, so ease of use, I don't think there are any surprises there at all. They want things to be simple, the fewest clicks as humanly possible with the most seamless experience. They're still looking for some type of in-person experience or interaction as well. It doesn't necessarily always have to be face-to-face, but that is something that they still appreciate. So that's why I'm saying we don't have to kill branches yet. But they're still looking for some type of interaction, especially, when it comes to complex transactions, and just having someone that can help and guide them through it. In terms of internet banking, so they prefer internet banking over mobile banking. So just to clarify the distinction, internet banking would be accessing your internet banking through a desktop or a laptop, versus when we refer to mobile banking, we're talking about your app via your smartphone. So no sinister reason for why they prefer internet banking. It really just comes down to the size of the actual screen. And then lastly, branch. So they still would like a branch to be available. It's still important for them to get that more human interaction every now and again, especially when something big changes and they need to learn everything from scratch once again. Then our millennials and our slightly younger Gen Xers. So they are an absolute time scarce generation. So they have time for absolutely nothing, and they do their payments and whatever else they need to do on their banking platforms in the middle of the night or early in the morning. I know I'm like that. I freak out, wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning and realize I forgot to pay my levy or something like that, and then I'll do it then. So for them, access is incredibly important, more so than any of the other 3 A's, but you can see that all A's are indeed important for them as well. So as I mentioned, customer service, very important for them because they are so time scarce and because they're always doing their banking on the go. It doesn't really matter what format that customer service take for them. Obviously, online is better, but for them, it's just really about something that's reliable, efficient, and quick. So it doesn't matter what that is, just help me and help me now and solve my issues right now. Control and security, very important for them as well. So control from a update perspective, so let me know what's going on with my finances. Let me know what's going on from a security perspective as well. Keep me updated on the latest issues and scams and fraud and SMSs that I need to avoid and links that I shouldn't be clicking on, because that's important for me. Again, we're not saying that that's not important for other generations, but this is something that makes your millennials and your younger Gen Xers tick a lot. And then lastly, banking fees, very important for them as well. So because of this, they're very conscious about their spending because they are aware of what their banking fees are. So a 50 Rand here or there in terms of their disposable income actually makes quite a big difference. I don't know if it's maybe because according to the media, we buy Avos with our money the whole time, but that 50 Rand does make a difference for them. And then lastly, our Gen Zs. So they are the immediate gratification generation, where digitally inclusive banking is an absolute hygiene factor for them. It's not a nice to have, it's not an add-on, it needs to be available. And you can see based on that, that access in terms of the 3 A's are most important for them. And we're not saying that affordability is not important, but for the time being, it's not such a crucial factor, mostly because they are young, they're students, so their banking fees are cheaper, and some still have the luxury of their folks paying for their accounts. So maybe later on, it will become a bigger concern for them. So if we look at what makes them tick, features, functionality, so everything needs to work. Everything needs to work all the time. They don't appreciate downtime at all whatsoever. And then also everything should be fast. So speed, quite a big theme for them in terms of setting up accounts. It should be uncomplicated. The navigation should be easy. There shouldn't be glitches or errors or issues or anything like that. And lastly, they want a 100% online offering. And Nandi, I see you're in the crowd. That's one of the reasons why Time Bank is so popular amongst your Gen Zs as well, but I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir on that one. Okay, so before I'm going to wrap up with a couple of key learnings, I just want to very quickly circle back to the